Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the 2022 4th World Congress of Psychogeography. I'm Aled, and I'm one of the members of the Politburo, and I'm the host for part of today. Can I also introduce Fiona?
Hello. I'm here doing various introductory and techie things in the background.
Let's have a hello from Carl as well.
Hello, everybody. I'm here, which I think is an achievement, but hey, I'm glad everybody else is here too.
Thank you. And Sonia?
Hello, I'm busily letting people in, which is lovely to see. It's great to see some names here that I recognise from sending you emails. I'm going to be doing a bit of behind the scenes teching, hopefully, she said, admitting somebody else, and sharing the show reel of postcards. Thank you for sending your postcards in.
Yeah, we've fully succumbed to the spectacle this year. We're definitely producing a live TV programme. So you've all been asked to consent to this being recorded. So we're all playing along with this together. And if I can just give a little introduction in the chat, look at the chat, you can see our running order. So we're going to start with a show reel of postcards, which you've all contributed to. And then we're going to have a first group of Petra Kutcher. I think what we're going to do is we'll probably actually start our show reel in a minute or so, I think. So Sonia is managing the show reel, and Sonia is also managing quite a few of the other things. Would you like to start off with the show reel, Sonia?
was lovely. I really enjoyed that, seeing little snippets of everything.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks, everybody.
How creative all the different ideas were as well. Really, really nice.
So we have video and audio postcards to share later.
I'll pass the baton on to Dan.
We're in. Well, hey. Right. So, if that's all good, I'll kick off. What if Wordsworth had visited New Street? What if Turner had sailed the Tyne? Would we be restoring as we revere the upturned shopping trolleys, seeing the sublime every single time we apply the handbrake and survey the climb of the NCP car park? Would we be romancing a reconnection? So, the aim of our walk was to look at Birmingham's busiest city centre street, New Street, through the lens of the Romantics. Can new experiences be found in a street full of commuters and shoppers and pub goers and Deliveroo bikers? Can experiences be similar to those depicted by the Romantics in the environments they romanced? We looked at two themes. The first was restoration. In his poem Tintern Abbey, Wordsworth speaks of being run down with city life and thinks back to sitting above the River Wye and how the scene offers him a tranquility in which he can restore and revive. The second theme we looked at was for this, we looked at Turner's paintings and the writings of Edmund Burke in their depictions and descriptions of the sublime, an experience in which we feel slightly humiliated by something, but in that we then relish the experience. So on a busy late Thursday afternoon in July, 5 of us, armed with a brief history of the Romantics, with some fresh Wordsworth poetry and Turner paintings buzzing around in the mind, we set off to see if we could be restored or find the sublime as we walked New Street. Upon finishing our first length, after a slow meander down, responses were somewhat limited. It seemed there was an adjustment period in walking against the hustle and bustle and pace of the street. Some of the walkers seemed to be thrown by how trees and other flora were impinged within the street, which created a sort of non-restorative feeling. However, on the return leg, having had time to adjust and look into a different way, along with the sun now joining us, observations were made on finding fascinations in the history of the street and how the different architecture, old and new, and just moving slow and letting the street flow past allowed for a somewhat tranquil experience. And the results. Well, at the end, we took a seat on the fountain at Victoria Square and all mused down our findings in the form of poetry, as the Romantics would have liked. And I'll just leave this last slide on for 20 seconds, which then is an amalgamation of some of the lines that all the walkers sort of passed to me at the end.
So I wish you were here. My postcard is coming from Ayrshire, Scotland, one of the UK and Scotland's least visited ordnance and survey maps, apparently. It doesn't feel like that where I live, but apparently that's the case. Ayrshire, like myself, has a Gaelic name, and Gaelic is across the whole piece of the county. It's very much an agricultural part of the world historically, and to a lesser extent it still is. Barbara Gilmer brought full cream cheddar cheese to Dunlop from Ireland back a long time ago. It has European status now, like champagne and parmesan. Maybe lost on Brexit land a little bit. This is the solstice from where I live, and we've always used the sun and where it sits in the location across the landscape to root ourselves. I've walked this road and this pathway many times, drawing it and measuring it and feeling it. under my feet, the rigs of the ploughed fields, the grass is growing, the paths and movement of the wildlife that we see. We can see one of Europe's biggest wind farms from here, and we're very aware of the change from a carbon climate and a carbon driven economy to a green one. I'm able to charge my electric car from the power that comes from the wind turbines, which is quite a nice feeling. One of the things I notice when I walk the fields is the paths the cows make, and I know that 6 generations of cows have lived here, so I often wonder how their minds work, and if they are dadists, I don't know. But it's very interesting to see the paths and how they traverse the fields. The sheep do the same thing, the hares also, the curlews occasionally. We can hear the odd cuckoo. So in my postcard, I asked the question about the British summertime and whether the hour that disappears at Greenwich Mean Time, where it goes. So I made an attempt to draw this time in this space, which wasn't easy because it was raining, but it was good fun. And I made some work around that. And I can tell you that the hour definitely does still exist. And I'm also aware that our climate and our rain continues to fall at the same rates and notice that it always has done. It slightly falls differently in the last 10 years from when it did before, but it still rains as much in Ayrshire as it ever did. We've got the mountains of Arran to thank for that, I think, a lot of the time. And this is a detail of one of the drawings that I've been making during this little piece of work, which is part of an ongoing longer piece of work, which involves the environment that I live in and the locality that I'm closely associated with, as is my family and has been for many years, and let's hope will be for more years to come. And that's me. Thank you very much.
That's fantastic. I really like that. There was the moment that the cow slide popped up and you said, I can charge my electric, and I heard it as cow.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, lovely.
So the basic idea of our derive was to use a £5.20 West Yorkshire Day Rider ticket. To stay on first buses all day with no predetermined route, which we did, myself, Phil and Anzia, on Sunday the 17th of July this year. In this picture couture, I've accompanied some images from our derive with extracts from Guy Debord's Theory of the Derive, translation by the Bureau of Public Secrets. So derives, Debord tells us, involve playful constructive behaviour, and the best numerical arrangement consists of small groups of 2 or 3 people, and the average duration of a derive is 1 day, or the time between 2 periods of sleep. Anzia did come alone to a previously specified place, which was Shipley Market Square at 9 o'clock in the morning. But we arranged an alternative rendezvous with Phil because he'd missed his connecting bus from Leeds. So we met Phil at Bradford Interchange. Next slide, please. Debord, you can see from this quote, doesn't entirely rule out the use of vehicles when conducting a derive. He does mention going by taxi to some alternative point for the purposes of disorientation. Bradford Interchange is a pretty disorientating place, and we hesitated there for some moments before legging it along the platform to the Brighouse bus, which was the next one to leave. Psychogeographical maps, according to Debord, are no longer a matter of precisely delineating stable continents, but of charting changing architecture and urbanism. On the next slide, there's a map of all 15 places that we visited during the 12 hours of our autobus derive. We travelled 111 miles altogether, not counting the last leg back to our respective homes, so probably approaching 120 miles in the course of the day altogether. Generally, we followed the principle of taking the next bus to somewhere we hadn't already been, but we did have to revisit Halifax, where the bus station is currently under redevelopment, reminding me of the 19th century prayer from Hull, Hell and Halifax, "Good Lord deliver us." Todmorden was the westernmost limit of our travels, and here it's possible to stand with 1 foot in Yorkshire and 1 foot in Lancashire. I'm not sure if this is what De Board meant by pivotal points, but there's something psychogeographically profound about boundaries, edgelands and liminal spaces like these. And there were certainly some playful constructive repetitions and puns along the way. Brighouse had Edward's shop, reminiscent of the local shop for local people, run by Tubbs and Edward in League of Gentlemen, while Halifax had the distinctly non-continental sounding Italian restaurant, Edward Cuisine. Shipley, Wyke and Pudsey all had their own Oddfellows Hall, while Todmorden just had Oddie's shop. And although the hippos of Hippahome were sadly not at home, we did see Todmorden Hippodrome. As our Wish You Were Here image, definitely with a question mark, we chose this one taken by Anzia of Friendly Avenue in Friendly, near the Friendly Inn and the Friendly Football Club. What could be nicer? Except, well, it wasn't actually that friendly. Historically, we found out that Friendlies were originally pubs belonging to factory owners, so they could reap the profits of their own employees' exhausted inebriation. Yeah, just to say that Friendly Avenue sounds like it could be a companion to an opposite of Lonely Street, but turned out to be a bit of a dead end. And coming to the end of our journey, it sparked an idea for a new project, which was to put together a psychogeographical playlist where the Hippahome Rap and Friendly Avenue would certainly be two contenders for inclusion. I'm thinking maybe a double album with some covers and some new material. But for now, if your baby leaves you and you're looking for someone new, don't be tempted to take a walk down Friendly Avenue. Thank you.
I've got, maybe it was because of the electric cows, but I've now got rock down Friendly Avenue instead of Electric Avenue running through my head. Jim, are you here yet?
Cathedrals are officially the main attraction. But what are they seeing? The view from the view. Becoming a tourist in my own city and 2 other cities. Following tourist trails no longer there, or partly still there. Cathedrals and statues. The establishment of men in bronze. Blue plaques and a bull. Using a tourist trail of Lincoln, I got lost in Hereford. Hereford is Widnes, not Widnes, not Lincoln. I turned left at the Tennyson statue. Tennyson is not the one leaning on his bike. Scatter confetti only outside. Scatter confetti only inside.
I love the fact that he does look like he's scattering confetti.
That he's what?
He does look like he's scattering confetti.
Yes.
Who is it?
He's Tennyson with his dog.
Tennyson with his dog, brilliant. Thank you very much, Jim. And okay, so Carmody, so we've reached the end of the first group then, I think.
So the plan now is actually to have a slight changeover and for Sonia to play the second half of the show reel. So thanks for everybody for what you've done. It's been a little bit glitchy, but there has been an amazing response this year for sure. And I think if we can see the next batch of the show reel, please.
Yeah.
May I never feel regret in sharing with you Brunt's best kept secret. I have walked in vast lands, now I find the colour within. Tram and siren softened by sing-song conversation. Wind blows me up the hill. Weed and vape give the nostrils a fill. The people fly by and congregate. The lovers, the givers, that have a good day as joy they inflate. Sun slides into view and I see the street anew.
Hereford is witness, not link. Cathedrals and statues, I turn left of the Tennyson statue. Scatter confetti outside, inside. Tennyson is not the one leaning on his bike. We came to sunny Huddersfield, where psychogeographers can enjoy almost the longest street in Yorkshire, a 19th century party no one has cleared up after, watching substance folding and refolding and yet remaining immanent, beating the bounds along a narrow canal and a wide canal, and photographing philosophical concepts in the wild.
I particularly like photographing philosophical concepts in the wild. I think that actually needs to be carved on my tombstone. I spent a lot of time trying to do that. Well, I'm not necessarily photographing, writing poems about philosophical concepts in the wild sometimes, or drawing them. It was just, yeah, beautiful. Okay, so we're up for group 2 now, and I've got Leodin at the top of my list. Are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so.
Okay, can people see that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So in 2020, I was commissioned to make a work about the coronavirus pandemic for Kirklees Council in West Yorkshire. I visualized spaces explored as time did strange lockdown things, stretching and compressing in ways that were incomprehensible just months before, when the days rushed by and weeks went on forever, and the world, stuck in a fearful state, changed the way we existed and related to people we passed, wary of their dogs as they sniffed close to our feet. Suddenly, any interior away from where we lived was dangerous and the outside safe. We were told by the government to exercise outdoors for an hour a day. Prior to lockdown, most of us walked either as part of our commute or traveled by car to walk for leisure. Now we could only walk near our homes. On my walks, I made a pact with myself. If I saw a path, field, wood, or green area I didn't know, I would follow it, keeping off the roads if at all possible. My world exploded. I found myself surrounded by nettles, blackbirds, apple blossom, bees, wildflowers and grasses, ponds, frogs, and a myriad of insects. For 1 hour a day, I forgot why I couldn't go to my usual places, why I was locked in my home. I wondered where other people walked and what their experiences were. There was a call out, and 18 people offered to walk for me. I've never met any of them. I don't know anything about where they walked or why. And they sent me maps outlining their spaces. I stalked their walks in my imagination. I turned their walks into UFOs, and they became another place, impenetrable, untraceable, and other. And yet I determined to make these walks into something tangible that hinted at bodily engagement. I worked with a textile mill where the walks became a physical thing embodying touch and resonating with the region's industrial past. They became a jacquard tapestry. The digital bits of code I had spent time mulling over is now a tactile, weighted thing with floating scapes. The repeating multicolored warp and weft threads optically blend in much the same way that pixels become an image, blades of grass become a field, or a person becomes part of a community. Each thread is a blade of grass, a moment, a pixel, and a person. And I've sort of added this in because the tapestry has only just been finished and it'll be on show at the Huddersfield Art Gallery, accompanied by about 20 works on paper of the project, various bits of ephemera. And the opening is on the 17th of September, so everyone who's in the locale, do come along. It's at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
How wonderful. I'll certainly try and get to that at some point during the exhibition. I liked some of those shapes were leg shaped, which was just a coincidence, I guess, but quite satisfying. Thank you so much, Leodin. Carmet, shall we come back to you?
So I'd like to invite you to walk with me backwards in time to the formation of Avalonia as a volcanic arc about 750 million years ago, and its movement over the span of millions of years becoming a drifting microcontinent. So this little continent, connected to and then fragmented from other land masses. This is now, we see Pangaea, the supercontinent. So within this ever slow shuffling as continents formed and reformed, making space for new oceans to grow and shrink and grow again. So at this root of this, exploration is the rocks, the geological rocks that were fragmented off from Avalonia as the continents broke up again after the Pangaea supercontinent. And in this image, we see that the geological remains of the Avalonian microcontinent can be found in England, in Wales, in the Ardennes, in Belgium, in certain other parts of Eastern Europe, and in the south of Spain and northern Morocco. This also found in Newfoundland and in Maine. And I got interested in following these rocks. And I live in the south of Spain, and here, just on the Strait of Gibraltar, naturally, was the first place I was going to look for Avalonia. So I began with an invitation for a public walk along the coast between Tarifa and Algeciras, in this place that we see close to us. And just across the straits, we see Morocco, where another part of Avalonia would be buried down underground. Philosopher Michel Serres says that stone is the foundation. Sorry? He says that the stone is the foundation of story at every archaeological layer of human history. And this reminded me of a myth from the Seneca nation, the Seneca tribe, called the Story Stone, which tells us how the very first stories ever were told by a rock to an orphan boy. And so we came together in this place in the south of Spain to listen to the rocks, to hear what stories they had to tell us about Avalonia. Here among the great coastal rocks, a silent sermon remembered how the seas advanced and receded, how volcanoes brought to light the deepest secrets of the earth, how water and wind shaped the landscape, carrying its seed and stories to other faraway places. And so we called on the geological deep past to help us think and process a mythical way of thinking about places in their memory. And we know that Avalonian rocks in this part of the world are deep down, not on the surface. So we began by unhinging ourselves from surface time, traveling between crevices, down lithic layers, synchronizing our breath to a rhythm slower than slow, moving our limbs like rock people, these land masses, those giants, direct offspring of the belly of the earth. So this project, Avalonia Remembered, is an art-based project. Our first meeting was here in the south of Spain, and next one is going to be at the end of September in the northern Morocco. And I've been making open calls to other artists, to geologists, to cultural geographers, to storytellers to join us in this listening to the rocks. And perhaps what we will do at the end, as we go along different places, we will go next to Belgium. We're hoping to get to England, hopefully to Newfoundland as well. And hopefully as we go along and listen to the stories that emerge from this ancient microcontinent lying deep in the ground, we might be able to collect work and make an exhibition at the end. So yes, some of our questions are there any emerging memories, stories in different locations on the earth that hark back to a common source of rocks and minerals originating in Avalonia? And does the memory of ancient plate tectonics, geological fractures affect the cultural geographies of modern day people in these places. So we will see as we go along, we will keep you posted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How fascinating. So I've been playing around myself with the rocks and the idea of listening to rocks in Greece. I live on a Greek island, linked with the Persephone myth.
Oh, beautiful.
So yeah, that's really resonant for me. Thank you. Lydia, you are up next. Are you here?
Okay, I'm just going to talk about two walks, same presentation, both on the theme of relaxation. This first walk was a walk I contributed to the walk book, and it's an adaptable walk that enhances resilience wherever here is. And I'll say the item that we were looking for from the list, and then I'll say the related well-being activity. So a threshold. Take a moment to make a wish, visualize a goal, or set your intention. Step through or step forward. A rectangle. As you breathe in, let your eyes follow the short edge of the rectangle. And as you breathe out, let your eyes move along the long edge. Let your out breath be longer than your in breath. Continue walking with your eyes around the shape. Something tall or large. Stretch up and out with your body. Then relax. Squeeze tight with your muscles. Then release. A seat. Sit or stand and take a break. Think of ways to rest, restore, and replenish every day. An energy source. This is an embedded light in a path. Contemplate how you can move towards whatever energizes and powers you, and how you can move away from and minimize whatever drains you. The second walk was another unplanned walk, mooching about to find meditative places and mindful moments. The invitation was to meet by the cemetery gates. So in a quiet spot off the path, a mini relaxation session, focusing on the visual details of the objects above, observing nature, size and shape of objects, light and shade, silhouettes and shadows, edges and perimeters, overlaps and layers, colours, hues and tones. Another place of sanctuary, moments of stillness amongst city life, a stress management technique of 5 easy breaths. A nurturing space, a bench by a tree. Noticing the bark, its appearance, but also using the sensation of touch, laying a hand upon the bark to explore, be curious about its texture, size, shape, structure, patterns, irregularities, temperature, also its smell, maybe its sound. Mindful walking, feeling the type of surface, the ground beneath, tactile sensations, connection to the earth. Through mindful walking, putting one foot in front of the other, and focusing on the here and now, wishing you are exactly where you are. Thank you.
That was really lovely. Thank you. Kind of a little meditation in itself. Okay, Michaela, I think you're up next.
Okay. I'm Mihaela. I'm Senior Art Director and photographer based in Romania. working in the advertising industry and at the University of Arts Bucharest as a lecturer. My presentation is about objects found during my psychogeographic exploration in the city. One winter afternoon, I was walking in a park. In that silence and that white landscape, I noticed a chair thrown in the middle of the frozen lake. I wondered how the chairs got there. How was it his story? Then I realized I didn't have my camera with me because no one could have taken from there. I came next day to photograph it. And at that time, I didn't realize that was the beginning of my project. In my psychogeographic exploration, I photographed chairs of various types of damage and trivial. Through minimal artistic interventions, a common and uninteresting object can be transformed into an object with artistic valence, acquiring the status of objet trouvé. In the city of the city is the place of where sometimes I made unforeseen discoveries. I didn't look the abandoned chairs. This represent accidental discoveries. Only after a while, noticing their silent presence, I started to collect the images with abandoned chairs. In the state of which I found that chairs indicates that these have lost their status of objects useful to people. Before I photograph it, I looked, for example, at this chair for a while. It looks like it wanted to tell me, I wish you would sit here to listen my story. I think abandoned chairs constitute a visual disruption in the urban landscape by their unnatural appearance in the city space. In my vision, the chairs becomes characters who express their condition through the way they appear in the front of the viewer, describing a dramatic images. Starting from this idea, I decided to do a project that showed the silent story of this object, creating a context of each chair. I felt the need to give them names that represent them. My project presents a series of 6 abandoned chairs, recontextualized and displayed in a virtual exhibition. The chairs were transferred in a various scene imagined by me, presented in a theatrical atmosphere. I invited to visit my exhibition. Inside the virtual space, you will meet the fatalist, the fighter, the evil, the needy, the invalid, and the guardian. I will give you in the chat the project webpage, and there you will find the link for the visual exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love chairs, abandoned chairs particularly. That idea of disrupting the expectations and sort of narrative of a city is spot on, I think. We're coming to the end of the, I can never pronounce this right, Psychogeography. And Tamsin, I think you're on last. Are you here? I'm sure I've seen you on my list somewhere.
Yes, I'm here. Hi. So my community walk was called the Absent Trees of Granton, which is the area where I live in Edinburgh, in Scotland. And we walked from the, we walked from Granton Harbour here on the Middle Harbour, which I always think sounds a little bit like Middle Earth or something like that. Down across this main road and up Waterfront Avenue to just at the back of the National Museums Collection Centre. So from the sea inland, as it is, we're right opposite Fife on the very edge of the city. So from Chestnut Street, and that was one of the things that first alerted me to my sort of topic, because this is a reclaimed area. It used to be all water. It's a very, very rich industrial background. There used to be train lines running right along all of these arms to the three arms of the harbour that came along the route that we walked in the other direction, well, in both directions, taking cargoes that came from all over the world. So it used to be an absolute hive of activity, both ships and people. But nowadays it's been filled in, and this left-hand view is what part of it looks like now. It's mostly scrubland, but it's being developed. So there's a few massive new developments going up, and the whole harbour has been privatized. You could say there's a sign at the beginning of the harbour now saying private land, that you can't even go on it. So Chestnut Street was renamed such that the people who still live here, who were children during the previous sort of incarnation of the harbour, don't recognise it. They don't know where they are. They don't know where those places are. And so a lot of what we were thinking about as we walked was the link between naming places and a sense of belonging. If you change the name of a place, which has the memories right going back from your childhood, from the people who've died and so on, what does that do to you? You know, it messes with your mind. So we walked from this area of new development along a road where there were lots of trees that have been newly buried, newly planted, to another area, this area on the right here, where they've just taken up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trees. It all happened overnight, despite the fact that people clung to the fences, trying to say, no, they didn't want that to happen. So here's a chestnut tree in my mother's Kentish village, and it couldn't, of course, ever grow on the reclaimed harbour, where you can see the new development there. Treeless, because there isn't enough soil for it to grow. So quite why they chose that name even is bizarre to me. And we walked, a group of us in person, the photograph you've just seen, and a group online. And Charlotte wrote a lovely piece, a lovely blog about it, based on symbiosis, reciprocity, and listening. And she and I sort of co-hosted the walk. And it brought up all sorts of real tensions between the need for new housing and what might be described as a rather sort of touchy-feely, oh, we don't want to lose our trees, we'd rather have trees instead of houses. Sophie walked in Australia. She went to see a tree that had been buried in her mother's, planted in her mother's name, and made some beautiful drawings and sent those to me. Deborah, I forgot to put her name, Deborah Roberts, this is, walked in Gloucestershire, and again focused more on the trees, but I was interested in that lovely image of the shadows of that have already become the trees past. Richard Keating made this image and asked what happens in the mysterious space and place between gaze and the subject of gaze, the observer or the participant. And again, it asks, where are the people in a space that has now been claimed by a development company and cleared? And it's been cleared, as you can see on the left there, through the railings. It's been cleared for years now and nothing's happened to it. So I recently put up a sound walk installation there, which dog walkers who walk on the scrubland have been telling me they enjoyed, which is very nice. And that image is of the trees that were there at the other end of the walk before they were taken down. So thank you very much to you all for coming up with this brief. And that photograph sort of sums up this path that we walked, between the trees and the not trees. Now we're here, now we're not. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamsin. That was lovely to end with a collaborative one. So we actually had lots of different people's voices, not just yours. And I'm really struck this year by how much more the rural has come into the Congress than it usually does, with, you know, the idea of us walking and living and experiencing rural landscapes as well as urban ones is a little bit transgressive from a psychogeography point of view, but It's yeah, really good. So Patrick and Nina are joining us. Where are you both?
Yes, we're here.
Yeah. No, I mean physically. Where are?
We're in Leeds, in Yorkshire.
Okay, so you're not as far away as you often are when you talk to us.
No, not.
And they're going to take us through something. I think there's a kind of technical connection with your website and things. Anyway, I'm not going to try and explain it. You can explain it for yourselves, but we're absolutely delighted to have you here today. And what I'll do now is I'll find you on my list and I'll make you host, and then it's over to you.
Hello, my name is Patrick.
Hello, I'm Nina.
It's nice to be able to present our work again this year at the Congress. This is the second mapping project we've been able to present. And this year the project was called Contingent Cartography. So just a quick recap, last year's project was called Experience Mapping, and we invited people to submit photographs which had been taken during Congress activities or as they were traveling to or from any of the activities related to the Congress.
So these are all last year's submission. Thank you for all your contribution.
So once we received the photographs, the first step was to change the photographs into graphical images as we felt they would fit into our the map that we were going to produce. That was one reason. The other reason was, as each drawing was made, we had to spend time looking at the photographs, and when you draw them, you spend a long time looking at the photographs, and somehow it seemed to, in some way, replicate the experience that the person had had as they were taking the photograph. And this was the final map with the drawn images taken from the photographs integrated with further graphic images, which we created in order to construct a logical walk through this landscape. The information was very specific, the exact time the photograph was taken and the location. And so that led to a very logical, linear type of map. We arranged all the images chronologically so that it made sense as the walk took place through the day in order. So there was a definite starting point and there was a definite end. So the submitted photographs with the accompanying information led to this map being a very specific one, and the nature of the map was a direct result of the information that we received. So for this year's project, we asked participants to submit hand-drawn maps, which they had created as they were taking part in Congress-related activities, or again, on the way to or from any of those activities. We wanted people to draw simple maps rather than take photographs, because we wanted more of the participants' experience to be carried forward into the map. Last year, the photographs stimulated the map in some way. The photographs acted as a trigger, if you like. But this year, we wanted more of the participants' work and their experience physically to be carried forward into the later map.
Patrick, this year we received 3 different hand-drawn maps. They're quite different.
Yes, as you can see, this one is quite abstract in nature. And this one contains a lot more specific information. And this one presents a pictorial, much more poetic rendering of a location that was experienced. So the first step was to try to cut up the images so that we could
manipulate them and use them without actually erasing anything. And in this way, we can recombine elements of the 3 different maps together. So what we're doing is deconstructing the 3 maps and then reassembling them in a new type of configuration in order to create a different meaning. And so this is the final version of this year's map. So whereas last year's map was quite linear and could be followed logically, step by step, this year, the combined map has been influenced by the submitted maps. And the result is much more enigmatic set of directions for a journey. It's a type of a puzzle that needs to be decoded. The map does not say where you must start or where you must end. People can use the map in their own way. They can construct their own journey through this map, starting at a convenient point, having a different destination. And overall, we're very happy with the result of this year's project because compared to last year, in the map we created this time, based on these 3 submitted maps, we can see almost all of the elements in these 3 maps are still present in our final map. And that makes us feel that it's been much more like a collaboration with the 3 participants. So we'd like to thank you very much for joining the project.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I love the idea of a map of maps.
Yes.
The idea that we're all connected and it's all connected and we could actually kind of just map that somehow is brilliant. Really, yeah, really clever and inspiring.
Yes, we chose the term contingent cartography because whatever we did relies completely on what is submitted on other people's experiences and the maps they create. And that kind of directs us towards what kind of a final image we will come up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lovely.
So yeah, it's been amazing. So such brilliant contributions this year. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, if you do stuff on social media, if you could all remember to use the hashtag for WCOP22, then we can all have a look at what you're saying and look at links as well. There's been so much inspiration. Thanks everybody so much.
Yes, thanks for sharing your posts in the chat. I'll see what I can do about putting together a list and sending it around to everybody. But there's loads to look at. There are the video strolls videos as well, if you fancy a bit more psychogeography this afternoon. And there are wonderful virtual exhibitions and blog links to read. There's lots of wonderful documentation from this year's dispersed activities. So thank you all for your efforts, and thank you hugely for your patience with the tech and for persevering.
Yeah, cheers. It has, yeah, I'm amazed that we've kept it on time, but it's been really good and nice to have such a wide variety as well. And cheers also, Fiona, because you set up the Zoom today.
Goodbye, everybody, and see you next year.
Bye.
Bye, thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, Cameron.
Bye.
Bye-bye, thank you.